Good morning, everybody. We are so grateful to have you join us for Dr. Johnston's Resiliency Workshop, Bouncing Back from the Ups and Downs of Life. Today is our session 2 in reference to intentional enjoyment. For those of you that have not had an opportunity to join us before, Dr. Johnston is a clinical psychologist that works with us at Crossroads Christian Counseling Center. He has done the Lessons for Living series for many, many years, and we are grateful for the opportunity just to hear what he has to share today. So you will have opportunities for questions and answers. If you have questions in between, don't hesitate to let us know, and he'll be glad to help address those. Dr. Johnston, we'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So Robin, you're going to try to help me go slow, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, because sometimes I go too fast, and so anyone's welcome to speak up and say slow down. Also, I'm controlling this with this little cursor, and sometimes the cursor winds up in the middle of the screen, so if that's a nuisance, someone could tell me that as well. So today we're once again talking about the practice of resiliency, personal resiliency in trying times, and this is done in 3 different sections. We've already done one on attitude and outlook, which is really mainly about how we are thinking about the situations that we're in. And unfortunately, most of us know how to worry, which means when we worry, we often take a small problem and we make it into a big problem, or we take a big problem and we make it worse. So that section number 1 was on trying to become more mindful of the way we think and to try not to make things worse than they need to be. We also did a session on stress management, in which we were trying to look at what the key features of stress are as they affect us physically and emotionally, so we could catch that when we're getting stressed. And then we practiced a relaxation exercise as one way of setting the body back to normal and undoing what stress does to us. Well, when we're stressed and emotionally upset, often our emotional energy goes down. And when that happens, we lose motivation and the ability to get things done. So today we're talking about the intentional enjoyment of life, which is trying to put that energy back. So I don't know how many of you have been with us before, so we'll do a little bit of a review. We're talking about dealing with resiliency in trying times. It's good to be resilient anytime, but in difficult times, maybe a bit more. So the trying times are pretty much what we all know, what we're going through. Dealing with the pandemic and still dealing with the pandemic and trying to find our way to getting a vaccine if we want one, which can be quite a challenge. Dealing with the economic impact of the pandemic that's still going on. Over the summer, we dealt a lot with social justice issues. Politics was rather trying, and we're still in the midst of some of that. We had to deal with hurricanes and wildfires, the rest of the world. And we went through the holiday season in which we had to figure out whether we could actually safely be with our loved ones or not. So that's what the trying times that we're currently in, that's what we're dealing with. And daily life is just what daily life has always been. It's dealing with your family. That's the family you were born into, your mom, dad, sister, brother, having to decide if you can safely be with them, or just dealing with ongoing family issues and crises that might come up. In many ways, dealing with the same things with our friends, job issues that continue to go on, finances and health. So the trying times complicates all of that as well. So it helps to be resilient, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, the practice of resiliency. So what is resiliency? Well, in physics, it's when we take an object and we bend or stretch or twist it, and it pretty quickly jumps back to its original shape. So you can think of having a ball in your hand that you squeeze that jumps back to its shape. Psychological resiliency is similar in that it's bouncing back from the ups and downs of life, but it's more than bouncing back. It's also moving forward in life. It's overcoming situations, it's solving problems and still enjoying what's going on. And when we know how to be resilient, it provides an inoculation against stress, burnout, and depression. The 3 main drawbacks to giving out of energy. And so when we're talking about resiliency, we're really talking about those 3 skills that I mentioned. Knowing how to develop and hold on to a realistically positive outlook, which can be hard work. recognizing stress and then doing something to undo it so that it doesn't take a toll on you, and knowing how to recharge our energy, recharge our life through intentional enjoyment. So that's the third section that we're dealing with today. And so the good news about resiliency is that we all have it. The bad news is that we might not be protecting it. And if we don't protect it, then that means that the resiliency level I have today depends upon how I was taking care of my resiliency yesterday. If I wasn't doing a good job, then I won't be doing such a good job today. So we can think about resiliency as a reservoir, the resiliency reservoir. So if you picture a lake and a dam, and you imagine that all that water in that lake is your emotional energy. And every day, the stresses and strains of life uses up some of that energy. If it's a little bit of stress, then what happens is the floodgates open and some of that flows out into the world. If it's a bigger stress, then the floodgates open a bit wider, more of that energy goes out. And if it's a total disaster or coping with continual chronic stress, then the floodgates open so wide that all the water goes out. And then we're in a mess, we're stuck. So what should you be doing? Well, every day what you should be doing is some of this water is going out into the world, some of this energy is going out into the world. You should be doing something that helps you put water back, something that fills it up. Because if the lake bed does go dry, then we have two words we describe what that's like. One of those words is burnout. That's usually on the job situation where you feel like you can't do that job one more day, or depression. So the choices when your energy gets low is you got burnout, you got depression. So the challenge is to put energy back. And so to figure out how well you do that, we're going to take a little test, which actually requires a sheet of paper and a pencil or a pen so you can write something. And what we're going to do is make a list of 20 things you like to do, because the things you like to do are the things that help you refill the lake. They're the things that help you get your energy back. And so let's take a few moments while you think it over. And if you have pen and paper, write down, if you can, 20 things that you enjoy, 20 things you like to do. So we'll take a few minutes for you to do that. So when you do this, you can write down anything you've ever enjoyed. It doesn't have to be something you currently do or currently enjoy. Anything you've ever done that you enjoyed, you could write that down. And when I used to do these workshops in person, I would walk around the room and kind of see how people were doing as they made their list. And often I found that people started to give out pretty quickly. That is, they'd get to 6 or 7, 8 or 9, and they had a real hard time beginning to think of other things that they enjoyed. And I always told them that that was sad, pathetic, and pitiful, because what that means is if you don't have a list of 20 things you like to do, if you have a real short list, then you don't have many options. It's kind of like a menu of things that you could do for fun. It's like going to a restaurant and looking at their menu and finding you don't like anything on it. Well, you're up the creek here. You either have to not eat or you have to eat something that you don't like. Or if everything that you enjoy doing requires a bright, sunshiny day, and today it's raining, then you're out of luck because there's nothing you can do today because you don't have any rainy day activities. Now, the good news is that most of us like more than 20 things, but when put on the spot, we can't exactly think of it. So we're going to see if we can help you add to your list by going around and having people read a few of their items. So here I have a short little list. It says I like to read, I like to exercise, like to play on the computer, used to go to movies, now it's more watch them on Netflix. So Robin, can you call on people and just see if they can tell us a few things they like?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you could start.
All right, sure. So I love walking on the beach. Amy, what would something that you enjoy?
I had the same thing. I like the beach and like to see my grandchildren, and I like to have people over for dinner.
Awesome.
Now, if you hear something that you also like, but you forgot to put it on your list, go ahead and add that, because this is the way we learn about things that we like that we'd forgotten about.
All right. Mary Brooke, do you have a particular something that you enjoy doing?
I enjoy hanging out with my granddaughter.
Sweet, precious. Miss Anna?
Yes, I like, I have put traveling, the beach, and working out. When I saw exercise, it reminded me that I like working out.
Okay, good.
That's great. And I know we have lots of folks from Dr. McAleer's office. Anybody want to share your
I
things
like
that you enjoy?
Fishing.
Okay,
Good.
great.
I like flea markets.
Camping. Yep, that one's on mine too. Listening to music, cooking.
Those are all good.
That is
Well,
perfect.
if we kept going around, you might hear other things that you liked that you momentarily had forgotten about, so you could add them to your list. But now that you've got this list, we actually have to test it. And the way we test it is you read each item on your list. And if you actually did it in the last week, put the letter W by it. So look your list over. If you actually did this in the last week, put the letter W. And when we get through doing that, if you look at your list and you actually did 80% of the things on your list, and we ask you how life's going, the answer is going to probably be great. If you did about 50%, then life's okay. 20%, life's kind of dreary. And if you didn't do anything at all in the last week on your list, then that might mean you're burning out or depressed or just have no energy. And if you happen to be in this kind of no energy slump, someone could find your list and they could read it over and they could ask you to do one of your favorite things on that list, which may be go to a movie, go to a play, go to the ballet, go out to the mud wrestling match, whatever it might be. And if you're in this low energy slump, once they ask you to do your favorite thing, you will always give them the same answer. And the first thing you will say is no, and then you give them a reason. And so let's see if anybody knows what that reason is. It starts with I. For a lot of people, the reason is this: I don't feel like it. So have any of you ever said that when someone asked you to do something that was potentially enjoyable, something that you normally like, but you said, no, I don't feel like it? Because whenever you say, no, I don't feel like it, you've basically summed up your philosophy for life, which is that in life, you what? You don't do things till you feel like it. So how long is it going to take you to feel like doing this thing that you were invited to do? Go to the movie, go to the play, go out to eat. Because you could sit down and you could start waiting to see how long it would take. You might change your mind in about a few minutes, jump up and catch them before they get out the driveway and say you'd like to go. But you could sit there the rest of the night, or maybe you could sit there all day or a week or a month, because we don't know how long it's going to take you to feel like it. Because when you're waiting to feel like it, you're basically waiting on the capital letter M word to strike in your life and get you going. So what is this word that starts with M that you're waiting on? Could be mood, could be money, could be motivation, could be magic, but in reality, it's a miracle. And the reason you're waiting on a miracle is your plan is to sit there doing absolutely nothing while waiting for something to strike you from outside and fill you with energy, motivation, ambition, desire, and make you want to go do something without you doing one single thing to bring that about. So that's waiting on a miracle. It's not really the best plan for trying to get your energy back. So we have to figure out how to make the miracle. What can we do to make the miracle for ourselves? And to make a miracle, we have to understand and we have to know what comes first in life. Is it motivation or is it action? Well, if you're motivated, well, then good, you go and do it. But what if you're not motivated? Well, now you're back to waiting unless you understand that action comes first, that if you act first, then you can kind of start yourself. You can create the motivation. And this is something that we actually do a lot. All you have to do is just think back to when someone wanted you to do something and you didn't really want to do it. Going somewhere you didn't want to go. So see if you can remember the last time that happened to you. Maybe you didn't want to go to the ballet. Or maybe you didn't want to go take a walk. Or you didn't want to go out. Or you didn't want to go to that mud wrestling match. But this was a person who was close to you, like maybe a spouse or a real good friend. And you knew that they were going to keep hounding you. So you reluctantly agree to go, even though you don't want to go, secretly vowing to yourself you're going to make them miserable. That is, you'll make them pay for this. And you go along, and much to your surprise, what happens pretty soon is you get caught up in the moment and you find that you enjoy it more than you anticipated. And you come back and you talk about it, tell everyone about it, whatever it was, until they just wish you would shut up. So about 4 years ago, after the last election in November, when it was cold, my wife asked me one day if I wanted to go to a chainsaw carving contest being held in Jones County on a farm on a cold, kind of wet day. And that didn't sound like a lot of fun to me. And so I was tempted to say no, until I figured out she wasn't really asking me if I wanted to go. She was telling me I was going to go. That's the way things work sometimes. So I went along somewhat reluctantly to this chainsaw carving contest, not really knowing what it would be. And when I got there, the weather had improved and they had a lot of food trucks so you could buy food. But they also had these lumberjack type folks, men and women from around the country, who were very busy with their chainsaws, making some amazing works of art that you think could not possibly be made with a chainsaw. And they had contests where they were trying to see who could make it the quickest. And it was a very good time and I enjoyed it a lot. And I did talk about it too much. In the next 3 years, I took somebody back with me to go and see what it was all about. Now, I didn't really want to do that, but I did it anyway. And because I did it anyway, even though reluctant, I gave myself the opportunity for the energy to catch up with me. And so that's how action can help us get our energy back. When we're in the midst of burnout or in the midst of depression or we're overwhelmed with stress, often we don't feel like doing something. And that's more of an emotion. It's not that we don't have the physical energy to do it. It's we don't have the emotional energy. And just sitting and waiting is not going to necessarily get that for us, because while we're doing all that waiting, we're often thinking, which means we're back to the first lesson on resiliency, is the way we think can make things worse. And so if we're left alone thinking, often we think ourselves into deeper trouble than we need. So the challenge is, how do we get out of that? Well, we have to interrupt the thinking, and then we need to go into some action. So resiliency secret number one that you need to know is every day you must have fun, whether you feel like it or not. How you feel is not so important as what you do. So have fun every day. Well, this leads us to the resiliency paradox, because it seems like if something was fun to do, go to the movie, go out to eat, take a walk, pet the dog. It seems like if it was fun, we would just do it. So let's say you make plans to go out to a movie with a friend, you go to work, work's really hard that day, you get home, your friend calls and says, let's go to the movie. And you say, no, I don't feel like it. And so you stay home. So do you start to feel better right away? Well, chances are not, because now you have two problems. Not only did you have a bad day, but you're kind of disappointed because you didn't get to do what you wanted to do, conveniently forgetting that you just decided not to do it. So the challenge is to learn how to say yes to opportunity, to recognize opportunity when it comes along, opportunity to participate in something that can be good for us, and to say yes to it. So what are things you enjoy? Well, certainly fun things. Y'all had some pretty fun things that I heard y'all mentioning. But you need something like item number 5 on my list. Anybody remember item number 5 on my list? Well, you might not have noticed it, but it was clean the toilet. Now, whenever you clean the toilet, you might not have a lot of fun, but when you finish and you stand and look at that toilet, you actually get something that you enjoy. And what you get is what? A sense of accomplishment. You like the way it looks. It's nice and shiny. You got something done. So another thing that we enjoy, in addition to fun, is something that gives us a sense of competency in life. So it doesn't have to be clean the toilet. For me, it's often washing dishes when I get home at night. You know, sometimes I don't know if I actually have accomplished anything. I spend my time talking and listening to people all day. And sometimes it's hard to know if you actually made any progress. But if I come home and wash dishes, I started with dirty dishes and I wind up with clean dishes, and I can tell that I've got something done. So every day, the challenge is you have to have fun and you have to get something done. So when you're going to bed at night, you ask yourself 2 questions. Again, did I have any fun? And did I get something done? And if you can say yes to one thing in each category, what kind of day have you had? Well, you've had a good day. You've had a better day than a lot of people have had who can't say yes to one thing in each category. And if you can say yes to more than one thing, if you can have several items, then you're working on increasing your resiliency by building up your emotional energy. So resiliency secret number 2, on those days when you come home, you feel like you've got nothing done, what do? Well, you go clean the toilet. Time you get home, then you've got something done. You just have to have fun by midnight and you will have had a good day. So you have to find that thing that you can do each day that does give you that sense of accomplishment. We can also think back to that list that you made, and you can go over that list, and for everything that takes you more than 15 minutes just to get ready to do it, put the letter P. So some of you like to go to the beach. Well, it's going to take you several hours to get to the beach, so that's going to take some planning. When I used to like to go to the movie, I had to drive way across town, so that took some planning. Skiing took planning. So look and see how many of your items take planning, because it's good to have some things that take planning, because those things you get to enjoy 3 times. You enjoy it when you plan it, you enjoy it when you do it, and you enjoy it when you're back and you think about it or tell your friends about it or show pictures of what it was that you were doing. So you can assess your list by looking at how much planning. So you need some things that take planning. You could also put a dollar mark by everything that costs more than $10 each time you do it. You're trying to see how much money does it cost you to have fun. The dollar marks often go by the planning. So if everything costs money, and in our current economic situation, that might be hard for you to be enjoying a lot. But if you got some free things on there, like taking that walk around the block, then things will go a bit better for you. You could also look that list over and you could put an A, the letter A, by each thing that when you do it, you usually do it alone. So we're trying to look at the balance between things you do alone, the things you do with other people. If you don't do anything alone, that might mean you wind up being too dependent on other people to make you happy, to bring pleasure, enjoyment into your life. You don't have things that you can just do by yourself. So you need some things you can just do by yourself. If you don't have any things with other people, then you're not balanced in what you're doing. You're kind of cutting out that social interaction aspect. Now, all that is kind of problematic now with the coronavirus, but still applies. So let's talk about simple pleasures. something like having a cup of coffee, maybe telling a joke, making a phone call, writing a letter, listening to music, dancing, singing. So hopefully you've got some simple pleasures, but the problem with these simple pleasures is we actually have to be able to do them in a certain way. We have to be able to do them mindfully. That means we have to be aware of it while we're doing it. So a lot of people might say that taking a hot shower is a simple pleasure. And if you're busy taking that hot shower while you are worrying about a problem, then that shower is going to get you clean, but it's not going to make you resilient because you aren't really there. Or if you're busy petting your dog on the head while you're worried about a problem, one of you is getting some benefit, and it's not you, because your dog is always present in that moment. Or it might be something just like eating a snack. When I worked at the medical center, we had the pink ladies who would go around pushing a cart, selling candy to patients and employees. And one day, one of them gave me a small candy bar that I put beside me on my desk at the computer while I kept working on the computer. And sometimes later, I looked for that candy bar and it was gone. I couldn't figure out what happened because I knew I was the only one in the room. So I looked around to find it, and I saw the wrapper in the trash can, which meant that I had obviously eaten it, but I didn't remember doing it because I just picked it up and kept working, and I was not mindfully aware of what I did. So I didn't really enjoy that. So we have to learn how to be mindful in the moment with these simple pleasures. So here's a little poem about living in the present moment that I always get Robin to read for me. So will you read that again, Robin?
Yes, sir. It's called Present Tense. It was spring, but it was summer I wanted, the warm days and the great outdoors. It was summer, but it was fall I wanted, the colorful leaves and the cool, dry air. It was fall, but it was winter I wanted, the beautiful snow and the joy of the holiday season. It was winter, but it was spring I wanted, the warmth and the blossoming of nature. I was a child, but it was adulthood I wanted, the freedom and respect. I was 20, but it was 30 I wanted, to be mature and sophisticated. I was middle-aged, but it was 20 I wanted, the youth and the free spirit. I was retired, but it was middle age I wanted, the presence of mind without limitations. My life was over, and I never got what I wanted.
And if you look at the bottom of that screen, you see that's from Dear Abby by Jason Learman, age 14. So a very wise young man realizing the importance of being present to what's going on. So simple solution is basically want what you have and be where you are. Two real challenging things to do: to want what you have, be happy with what you've got, and be where you are at the moment. Here's a little simple present moment meditation to try to help us become aware of the present moment that you can do almost anywhere. And all you have to do is breathe in and breathe out. And the first time you breathe in, you just describe what you're doing. You think to yourself, breathing in. And then when you exhale, you think, breathing out. The next time you breathe in, you tell yourself, present moment. And then when you breathe out, peaceful moment. So let's try that. Just breathing in, breathing out, present moment, peaceful moment. Breathing in, breathing out, present moment, peaceful moment. Now, when you do this, if you look at the present moment, if you look at the moment you're actually in, most often you will find there's nothing that's disturbing that moment. That moment is actually okay. What was disturbing it is that you weren't in that moment, is your mind was somewhere else. You were thinking about what happened last week, or you were anticipating what might happen next month, or you were worried about bills that you might not be able to pay, or whatever else was going on in your mind. but it was taking you away from the present moment. If we can do this little breathing exercise, then we can kind of center ourselves and maybe quieten the mind so we aren't disturbing things so much. So I've tried this in some interesting places, like sitting in the dentist chair, which I don't really like doing. But once they've numbed you up to do their work, other than just being a little patient to get it over with, there's nothing terrible that's actually happening. I tried it one night coming back on an airplane in which it was rather bumpy. But other than it being a little bit bumpy, nothing terrible was happening. The present moment was okay. So if you think of life as a box, we have to fill it with something. And for some people, they fill it with one thing. It could be work, or it could be a relationship. And if work's going okay, that relationship's going okay, then life is great. But if work's not going so okay, or that relationship has trouble, then life's not good. A better strategy for life, rather than filling the box with one thing, is to have a lot of little categories. And so you've got work and friends and exercise and relationship and going fishing. And if you put some energy into each of those over the course of a week or a month, there are other things that are taking place in your life. You aren't dependent on just one thing to make you happy, to bring enjoyment. And you're going to be taking some action that keeps that resiliency reservoir, that lake, full, so you've got energy when you need it. So this enjoyment, this third lesson, is really about just being mindful that every day it's important to engage in activities that are enjoyable or that give me some sense of accomplishment, and to do it whether or not I feel like it, that I can make myself do things. And by making myself do something, I can get an accomplishment, I can change my mood, I can influence the way I'm thinking about the situation that I'm in. So the resiliency skills, again, one is attitude, outlook. The other is undoing stress, recognizing undoing stress, enjoying every day. Now, whenever I teach this first section on cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically what that is, I remind people that everything I'm telling them, and again today, is basically common sense. That is, you know this already. The problem is common sense isn't commonly used, which means we forget what we know, and therefore we don't do it. And so it's not helping us at all. So this is a reminder of things that we know, that the way I think about my situation in life is going to make it better or worse. If I have the opportunity to think it and make it better, that's my best choice. This is also obvious according to George Bernard Shaw, who says, no question is so difficult to answer as that to which the answer is obvious. So if you want some more information, I have a website, lessonsforliving.com. I'm not able to maintain it as well as I used to, but it does have a lot of this information out there. Also, my book, Lessons for Living, goes over this as well, a lot of the same information. Amazon has that if you're interested. And let's see if we have any questions. This is the hardest part of this little workshop here, is trying to have a question and getting people to ask questions.